some $4 billion worth of rice in order to meet the expanding domestic consumption.
Now, but in order to ramp up sufficiency in rice production and reduce imports, the Buhari administration, using policy initiatives such as the Anchor Borrowers Program, boosted the capacity of farmers for local production of rice in a bid to reduce imports and attendant smuggling of the commodity into the country.
And to also curb the smuggling of rice, mostly from Thailand and India into Nigeria through borders with neighboring countries, the federal government went as far as shutting the nation's land borders for several months, which then offered some window of opportunity for domestic production and competition to also thrive across the rice value chain.
However, with the reopening of the nation's land borders, contraband rice is beginning to flood the country once again in tons, raising concerns that successes recorded during the period of border closure is about to be eroded.
In fact, we hear that a lot of the contraband rice now flooding the country with the reopening of the borders. It's been repackaged and branded in bags that portray them as homegrown. And this is posing a major challenge for consumers who are also being deceived into thinking that they are buying Nigerian rice, whereas the content is foreign. It's become a major setback, as it were, in terms of local rice producers, which many believe, of course, is tasty and more nutritious. But we are faced with, Jumaya, as it were, the highly polished foreign variety.
Yeah, exactly, Kingsley. And to this effect, the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria, RIMAN, has already raised an alarm with an appeal to the federal government and relevant agencies to urgently institute a raid of Nigerian markets with a view to confiscating smuggled rice and arresting marketers of smuggled rice. Is this achievable, Kingsley?
Well, that's a pertinent question that you have raised there, and some persons will say it's a major challenge because what we are seeing now is soon after the borders were reopened, kinds of varieties of foreign rice started flooding the market. What is it that Nigerians have as the appetite for imported goods, in this case for imported rice? Now, the best bet to prevent smuggling in the first instance, we are told, would be a major move in dealing with the contraband influx of the local rice. Now, the local rice, of course, is still in demand, but we do know that it's been swamped by what we have seen in terms of those who are getting them either rebagged or getting them from across neighboring countries. And several hectares of rice farms, of course, were unfortunately submerged in the floods of last year, and we have also seen the impact of the coronavirus pandemic and instances of insecurity in different parts of the country. All of this, of course, have tended to impact on the quantum of domestic rice production.
So we ask the questions, what are the factors fueling the resurgence of foreign rice in the country, and what policies are required to sustain the rice revolution in the country? Okay.
Well, we shall seek answers to those questions and more in the course of our conversation segment into this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. On which note, we'd like to welcome you to this edition of the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. As always, we are broadcasting live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, and we are here in the nation's capital, Abuja.
And I am joining Kingsley to welcome you to the program, the first edition for the month of February 2021. We also have a complimentary segments in the course of the program, but we'll begin right away with the morning news. And Ifeoma Ojinta is here. Good morning, Ifeoma. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Juma. It's good to see you this year. Good morning, Kingsley. And here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari assures Nigerians of full implementation of the 2021 budget with all transparency and openness towards meeting its target of placing Nigeria on the path to sustainable future. Speaking to journalists in Daura shortly after revalidating his membership status of the APC, the president appreciated the National Assembly for the effective and detailed attention to critical financial documents before its passage.
The National Assembly has passed it. Now we went to all ministries and departments and agencies to see what is their share in the budget and how do we secure the National Assembly's support so that by the next budget we can tell Nigerians what we received, how we use it according to the budget, and the balance. We are very proud of making our balance sheet available to the whole nation. We have nothing to hide.
The federal government says Nigeria's low rating in the 2020 Transparency International Corruption Perception Index is not a true reflection of the great strides by the country in its fight against corruption. In a statement, Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, said that the country's anti-corruption agenda, which has placed great emphasis on corruption prevention measures and the building of integrity system, is on course. The minister said the implementation of the various reforms, especially in the ease of doing business, is expected to yield positive outcomes within the next 12 to 24 months. Lai Mohammed said high-profile corruption cases are currently under investigation and prosecution, adding that a number of significant policies have been instituted to enhance transparency and accountability. And for an update on COVID-19, 685 new COVID-19 infections have been recorded in Nigeria in the last 24 hours, bringing Nigeria's caseload to 131,242. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, says the new infections occurred in 16 states, with Lagos reporting 355, Kaduna 58, Nasarawa 46, Kano 40, Akwa Ibom 33, Katsina 26, Ogun 25, Osun 24, and Rivers 16 cases. Edo recorded 15 cases, Oyo 13, Ondo 12, Borno 11, Ekiti 9, Kebbi 3, and Plateau 2 cases this time around. Nigeria has so far tested 1,302,410 samples, with 24,667 active cases nationwide. Total discharge cases are 104,989, while the death toll is now 1,586. The presidency is appealing to Nigerians to comply with the just signed executive order that makes mask wearing and observation of social distancing in the public mandatory, noting that President Muhammadu Buhari introduced the order with the best of intentions and not with any motive to punish citizens. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, the presidency appeals to relevant social actors to play active roles in the sensitization and enforcement of the order to avoid crude methods that may create resistance and resentment, thereby defeating the primary goal of the executive order. The statement says the Buhari administration is most reluctant to lock down the country and continues to emphasize the non-pharmaceutical measures, even as the country is making efforts to get the vaccine. The presidency notes that public health is one of the sacred duties of any responsible government, which the Buhari administration will not abdicate. It admonishes Nigerians to have it in mind that the COVID-19 pandemic is not only a threat to the health of the population, but equally to the national economy and every aspect of our everyday life. Senate President Ahmad Lawal says the National Assembly will exhibit high sense of responsibility and patriotism while conducting a confirmation hearing for the newly appointed service chiefs. Speaking to NTA's State House correspondent in Daura, Katsina State, Senator Lawal said this is to ensure that the appointees have all it takes towards dismantling prevailing obstacles to national security and stability for a greater Nigeria.
I received a letter from Mr. President requesting the Senate to confirm his appointment of the service chiefs, and when the Senate resumes from the 9th of February, we should be able to undertake that exercise very quickly, because this is something that don't have to be delayed at all, even though it's not in our character to delay anything.
What are you going to look at in the confirmation hearing?
Well, I believe that the professionalism is the most important thing. These are people that are supposed to have gone through the mills. They have been there in various positions of responsibilities, and I believe that our committees, the committees will screen and see how fit they are for these positions. And I'm sure that our committees will do a very thorough and proper job.
And that's the morning news. The program continues with Kinsley and Jumai after this break.
My dear party members, there comes a time when all good people must not only speak, but rise up and get involved in the task of improving their society. The need has never been greater than now for all Nigerians to actively contribute to the all-important task of nation building by bringing about good leadership and governance. For most citizens, their greatest weapon is their vote. Register now for your party and register when the time comes for elections. Political parties are the main vehicles under our laws through which citizens can participate in the ideals and practices of our democracy. As we have seen happening around the world, good citizens join political parties and use them to bring about the changes they desire. I'm therefore endorsing the nationwide membership registration and the revalidation exercise embarked upon by our party, the All Progressive Congress. I call on patriotic Nigerians to come out during the exercise, which starts on the 26th of January, and avail themselves of the opportunity to join the APC. Thank you, and may God bless our country.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together. Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
I bring you wonderful news. The village headmaster is coming back to your screen. Mo wire abi mi o wire. Teacher Lowo, a fẹ́ lọ wá nǹkan jẹ. Teacher Lowo, a fẹ́ lọ wá nǹkan jẹ. Ọmọ onírẹsì ti dé.
Ajebo na better school for last meeting. Not be all this on a rugged school for Ijabi. I don't know for you.
Second, it's called Oja Village. Kadesi, we no happy at all.
And I know that even you too, you are getting a lot of orders. Hey, we are trying, shao. Sweep her leg out. She was standing there. Sweep it.
I love you so much.
And how did I give you the impression that I was interested in that position?
50-year anniversary.
You mean anniversary?
I mean, it's not I talk with that now.
Nakule, not for me.
You want make I die?
Not for me because of Pamio.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's time for business news, and we understand that the Nigerian Stock Exchange has emerged Africa's best performing stock exchange in the month of January 2021. Let's join our correspondent, Chimobi Walter Naji, for details.
The Nigerian Stock Exchange, NSE, has emerged the best performing stock exchange in Africa after closing the month of January 2021 on the green territory. The all-share index ended the week and month of January in green territory. The index kept a clean sheet all week, up by 58 basis points on Friday and 3.44% week on week. NTA Nigeria, with 3.43%, had been instrumental to Friday's performance on sustained domestic demand, as the ticker recorded a new all-time high of 181 naira. Equities ended the month with a 5.32% aggregate. The NSE ranked 7th according to Bloomberg World Equities Index ranking, as oil and gas stocks finally halted the week-long losing streak to finish higher. All other sectors also finished in green except for industrials, with a marginal decline of 8 basis points. Turnover last week stayed impressive with a daily average of $14.53 million. On Friday, investors traded a total of $17.18 million. Zenith Bank retained the top spot on the activity chart with $3.20 million traded. Other notable volumes were MTN $2.47 million, GTB $1.84 million, and WAPCO $1.5 million. With business news, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Many thanks, Chimobi, for the business package. Next for us on Good Morning Nigeria is newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Tebe, is with us in the studios this morning. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Yumi.
Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
How was your weekend?
Had a pleasant weekend.
Yes.
Very well.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Juma, let's begin with you.
Yes. Well, let's begin with the Punch newspaper this morning. And just above the masthead, we have external reserves hit $36.39 billion on improved crude oil prices. All the details on page 33. Experts, nurses differ as presidency warns of fresh lockdown. You find details on page 10. Buhari fails to summon police council meeting. IG's tenure ends today. You find that on page 8. 49.68 billion naira spent on pipeline repairs in 10 months. That's coming from the NMPC. You'll find all the details on page 29. States fail to make vaccine plans. FG blames politics for delay. With riders, it is the responsibility of FG to provide vaccines for states, says Kano. Politics and logistics due to no fault of Nigeria causing delay. That's coming from the federal government. MTN donates $25 million for 7 million doses for Nigerian orders. And the picture story you see there, work with Niger, Chad, Cameroon, Zulum tells service chiefs. IG, the federal government should encourage state ownership of ranches. That's attributed to an ex-rep. You find details on page 28. Ganduje laments rising COVID-19 deaths, inaugurates 200 marshals. You find details on page 11. Bello's 2023 presidential campaign posters surface in Damaturu. All the details on page 8. Yari appealing to embezzled 248 million for future order, says aid. You find all that on page 18. Kidnappers kept us in cave, gave 10,000 naira for sleepers. A Niger victim, that's on page, Niger victim, that's on page 11. Groups rallying 100,000 clerics to play for peace in Kaduna. You find that on page 8. Kesley?
All right, let's take a look also at the Nation newspaper. Nation newspaper, COVID-19 situation. That's the headline for the two headlines, sub-headlines on the front page above the nameplate. 1 in 5 tested Lagosians virus positive. That is 1 in 5 tested Lagosians virus positive. NCDC, South accounts for 60% death. Details are on page 9. And also there on the front page, uncertainty as Inspector General of Police Adamo retires today. That's page 6. And below the nameplate, Labour pushes for 40% reduction in electricity tariffs. Foreign portfolio investments drop to 4-year low at 729.2 billion naira. What we are doing to deepen anti-graft war by federal government. That's on page 8. And the list story comes with a kicker. Ganduje banned open grazing to end farmers-herders feuds. With the rider, federal government should make a law stopping movement of cattle from north to south. How troops can finish off Boko Haram by Zulum. It's CDS, that's Chief of Defense Staff and Service Chiefs in Maiduguri. That's the rider to that headline. And you can see the CDS there along with the chiefs of the other services when they visited the governor in Maiduguri yesterday. 2023, push for Jonathan intensifies. And insurgents kill policeman in Borno. That's page 7. Bayo.
Thank you, Kinsley. Let's start with the alarm that has been raised from the presidency. And it's that Nigerians may have to undergo another lockdown if citizens fail to comply with compulsory wearing of face masks in public places. It may be recalled that the president signed an executive order making the wearing of face masks and observing social distances and washing of hands compulsory. The presidency statement signed by Garba Shehu says that the propensity of the public, members of the public, for not compliance weakens all the initiatives against the fight against the virus. He emphasized Nigerians must ignore baseless conspiracy theories that denies the reality of the pandemic, and we have a duty to protect ourselves and others. Measures introduced are for safety. State governments, traditional rulers, and regional leaders are enjoined to sensitize and enforce the execution of the executive order. The People Democratic Party, however, has expressed dismay over President Muhammadu Buhari's removal of his mask in public place during the APC membership revalidation exercise in Daura. In Osun State, the government has warned that 5 cases of the B117 COVID-19 strain has been recorded in Osun. The Commissioner for Information, Funke Egbemode, says that barely 1 week after the Presidential Task Force announced the new strain, 5 cases have been identified, and she warned that people must be very careful because the new strain spreads faster and also kills quicker. Therefore, more citizens are at risk, especially those who are, could be vulnerable, especially the aged ones. Across into Ekiti State, too, government has directed that both public and private hospitals henceforth should run COVID-19 tests on any patient who comes to the hospital and reports about fever, cough, or catarrh. The Commissioner for Health, Dr. Yebanji Filani, says that this is part of the effort to curtail the spread of the COVID-19. Meanwhile, the Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Lucky Irabo, says that it is not true that some Chibok girls were released during some clearing operations by the army. It may be recalled that last weekend, hopes were raised that parents would probably be invited to Maiduguri to meet some Chibok girls that had been rescued. The Chief of Defense Staff was speaking during the visit to the theater command in Maiduguri. He said, if they are not with us, we have nothing to confirm. He says, we, however, insist that the desire of the military is to get the Chibok girls back and safely. In our operation, we have held those, if our operation have held those that have escaped, I think we will be very glad. Major General Irabo, however, led the service chiefs to the theater to appraise the situation on ground and to be briefed accordingly. Governor Babagana Zulum has pledged support of the Borno administration to the new service chiefs, particularly in their fight against insurgency. He, however, also gave them advice, and he says that they should seek collaboration with the armed forces of the Chad, Cameroon, and Nigeria. He also enjoined the enhancement of the collaboration between military and civilian populace so as to build trust and also access to intelligence. He advised this military to be very tolerant of constructive criticism because such criticism, if they are made in good faith, will also enhance productivity. Meanwhile, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Odadayo Amao, says that Nigeria Air Force will work tirelessly with other services to bring challenges to insecurity to an end. At a taking over ceremony where the predecessor handed over to him, the Air Force Chief of Air Force says, we will leverage with partnership with professionalism and motivational initiatives to create an enabling environment for operations of personnel to thrive. Meanwhile, the Minister of Information has drawn attention to Transparency International rating that was published last week. He says the rating by the index are not correct in the sense that they are inaccurate. Minister of Information and Culture says that they don't reflect the true strides made by government in fighting corruption. Alhaji Lai Mohammed says, from all analysis, the 2020 Perception Index did not observe discrepancies in the rating process, the data sources that was used from Nigeria, because the data seems to have been flat for the past 10 years. He says also that it was not signifying any improvement, nor a decrease or any fluctuation. He says corruption ought to have been reduced because of the very many initiatives that has been put in place. He lists some of them as the size of the initiative, public sector initiative, the changes in policy, as well as personnel in the system. He then says that even amidst COVID-19, where transparency and accountability have developed and implemented substantially, it still did not impact on the initiatives of the Transparency International. So that brings a second comment that is coming on the Transparency International. The first came from the presidency, published by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Information. And when you do make a public assessment, obviously what you do in a scientific thing is put your data out for the public, and then it is there for everybody to use and to evaluate.
Well, just a story to quickly dispense with. It's not on the front page of the Nation newspaper, but I read a number of newspapers online earlier, and there seemed to have been some confusion. This has to do with the reopening of the 3rd Mainland Bridge. Yes. That's, as everybody knows, that's a major connector between the mainland and Ireland in Lagos. Now, over the weekend, it was supposed to be shut for 72 hours, total closure, to enable casting work take place. Now, the contractor completed the work ahead of schedule. Now, some reports were saying that, that 3rd Mainland Bridge has now been fully reopened. The earlier indication when it was closed in July was that the construction rehabilitation work was going to take place for 6 months, which was then extended to February. But the Nation newspaper captures it much more accurately because according to the paper, It's quoting a statement by the Commissioner for Transportation in Lagos that the earlier movement arrangements of 12 a.m. for Lagos Island-bound motorists and 12 noon for mainland-bound motorists subsists. In other words, the bridge has not been fully reopened. It's back now to the partial closure, to say movement, until, of course, the contractors have completed the rehabilitation work and certified it and then handed it back to government. I think that's very useful so that people don't get confused.
It's clearer the way you put it, because the closure was supposed to have been for 6 months, which was supposed to end in January. But because of the interruption of the COVID-19, it will now extend to the end of February. Meanwhile, they had to close totally for those casting, which require at least 72 hours for those casting to solidify. It is that closure for that casting that has now been over, not the closure that is supposed to extend up to February.
Okay. So let's now go to the editorial, and this is coming from This Nigerian Know the Truth, and it's talking about why new service chiefs can't afford to fail. It went further to say they certainly cannot afford to fail. Nigerians are waiting for them to literally perform the magic by dealing decisively with the terrorists and bandits in double quick time.
This Nigeria, I'm seeing it for the first time, but what he's saying is that there's concern about the service chief, because the anxiety is that kidnapping and banditry has become very prominent in the nation, and everybody is looking forward to them to bring an end to all these insecurity challenges that the nation is facing. And the editorial is saying that by estimation, since 1999, the service chief have served on the average of a period of about 1 year, 9 months, with the exception of the last one who left. And they are now saying that it is very instructive that for the service chiefs, they are not new to the theater, because many of them have been commanders either directly or indirectly with the
Chief of Army Staff and the Chief of Defense Staff.
Yes, Chief of Defense Staff, in fact, started the theater operation when it commenced initially. He was also the commandant of the multinational joint force in a location in Chad. So he's aware of this area. And what he is now saying is that they should take citizens into confidence so that they will boost their level of intelligence that will go a long way in helping them. But they are also emphasizing that there's great expectation from Nigerians, and they must live up to that expectation by delivering safe security quickly, so that the confidence that Nigerians have in the armed forces can be enhanced.
Okay, Bayo.
Well, it is not just the armed forces alone, so that we don't assume that it is the CDS and the service chiefs who have a responsibility. You have other agencies also with responsibility for security, internal security. You have the police, you have civil defense, you have the DSS, you have all kinds of agencies that you have. All of them, and then, of course, Nigerians themselves who are also there. Some of these crises that we are seeing, some of these conflicts that we are seeing, the question that keeps arising is, are these merchants of conflict, are they Nigerians?
Well, when you look at the bandits, from all indications, they are intrusions from outside the country. And that is why it is emphatic, as Kingsley has rightly mentioned, other services. You recall just only 2 weeks ago, they arrested a man who confessed to have sold 10,000 arms he acquired across the border from Niger, and he has sold to bandits across the country. You can imagine the level of damage that will have done to our insecurity.
That's
and
why
across the borders.
Zulum is saying they should work with Niger, Chad, Cameroon, so that they can gather information and know how to finally eradicate this insurgency from the nation.
Yeah, so there's a challenge for the immigration service, the customs service, the police, and all uniform security service. And also, we citizens must cooperate with the security to help them to secure all of us.
That's right. All right, bye, Atoebe. We appreciate you being around.
Thank you.
See you again tomorrow. It's Good Morning Nigeria, live on NTA's network service. We're taking a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be discussing the resurgence of imported rice in Nigerian markets.
katin fatinka har za ka san alƙiblarka sannan ka ɗau mai kishinka a cikin jam'iyyarka wanda zai mana aiki da ke da shi da su jama'ar Najeriya.
I am Governor Yabelo of Kogi State, Chairman, Youth, Women and People Living with Disabilities Mobilization and Sensitization Committee of the APC Membership Registration and Revalidation Exercise 2021, and I approve this message.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support, yes, by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria, pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
It's Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As a prompt for our conversation this morning, which is on the resurgence of foreign rice in Nigerian markets, let's listen to this background by our correspondent, Oyemi Ajayi.
In 2010, rice consumption in Nigeria was 5 million metric tons, and this is expected to reach 36 million metric tons by 2050, with 5.1% annual growth. To meet the demand and curb importation, the present administration embarked on several initiatives, including the Anchor Borrowers Program, to boost local capacity for rice production, with the ultimate aim of attaining self-sufficiency. However, despite the campaign for homegrown rice and large quantity of rice produced locally, many consumers still prefer foreign rice at the expense of the locally produced ones. As a result, Nigerian rice farmers are losing money to importers and smugglers who bring in rice without due process through the borders. This informed part of the reasons why the Buhari-led administration placed ban on rice importation aside other products and goods produced locally. During this period, the local production of rice received a boost, with much encouragement for many, including the youths and women, to proudly go into rice farming, which became a black gold. As much as rice farming was lucrative, many condemned the high cost in the market. Aside this, the flood from last year's rainy season destroyed many farmlands, affecting production and harvest. Notwithstanding the closure of the nation's land borders for several months, foreign rice still found its way into the country, and there is no restraints any longer with the opening of the borders. What can be done to get local rice production to meet up with demands? Also, how best can the government intervene in order to end rice importation totally? Our guests will speak to these issues shortly.
And joining us in the studio to discuss the topic is Director General Rice Processors Association of Nigeria, Andy Ekwelem. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to
Good
have you join us. Also here in the studio, we have a regular face on Good Morning Nigeria, the President, National Association of Nigerian Traders, Dr. Ken Okwa. Well, many thanks for joining us on Good Morning.
Thank you very much, Jemai. Thank
you,
Nigerians.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right, we are expecting to be with us for this conversation via Zoom, the Public Relations Officer of the Nigeria Customs Service, that is Deputy Comptroller Joseph Atta. Once he succeeds in joining us, of course, we'll have him be part of the interaction. But from our Mina Network studio, we are having Muhammad Ali Baba, is a consultant to the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, the former employee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, also an expert in development finance. Ali Baba, delighted to have you with us this morning.
Good morning.
Okay, let's begin the conversation with Andy Ekwelem, who is the Director General, Rice Processors Association of Nigeria. Well, recently, what we were hearing was that we were having a rice revolution in Nigeria, that we had attained self-sufficiency, as it were. We're on the verge, as we did with cement, of being now an exporter of the staple grain. But suddenly, reports are indicating that foreign rice is back in our markets. Is the rice revolution in Nigeria imperiled?
Well, good morning. What I would say is that our effort is still work in progress, and we are moving steadily to where we are going to. If we don't have the problems we are now encountering of smuggling and distortion of the market, the present administration has done a lot in making sure that we grow our rice. The positive effect and impact is all over the place. People are investing massively in rice processing, in large-scale farming, agro-input dealership. A lot of young men are encouraged now to look at farming as an alternative instead of waiting for that white-collar job that is not there. If you go around the country, there are new entrepreneurs coming up, young men going into the farms. People are even buying tractors to be able to help farmers, prepare their land in the season. A lot of things are going on, and then it's really an approval rating for this present administration. The CBN on their own has done so much in terms of funding. Before now, agriculture had a challenge of funding. The CBN has done a lot. You just mentioned it now, the Anchor Grower program, which is quite innovative, giving farmers what they need to make sure they grow food for us to eat. We as processors, the CBN came out when we complained we don't have enough funding to mop up the paddy around for processing. The CBN came up with the paddy aggregation scheme, and processors are being availed that fund to be able to get paddy. We can't say that our project or the program of the government in the area of rice is failing. No, it is not. In fact, it's getting stronger and stronger. But one thing we know is that once in a while we have this kind of issues. What has happened is that if you look at the period, or I would say from 2011, when all of this started, our major issue had been smuggling. At the time, it was free for all, Then when this administration came in, we were able to curb it. In fact, the final nail was during the shutdown and the border closure period. We didn't have issues. If you look at what happened during the COVID lockdown, nobody complained that rice was scarce. Nigerians were fed rice. We were delivering. The farmers were bringing the input, produce from the farms. We were taking it, we were processing, we were giving to Nigerians. All of that period of lockdown, nobody complained about food. Then what happened? All of a sudden, one thing we may know is that before the border closure, before the lockdown, a lot of rice had left India and Thailand and were warehoused in Benin Republic, in Cameroon. Now, the border closure was kind of stopped them, and then just immediately after the NSAS, and then the border reopening, they saw an opportunity to move this product into the country, displacing locally processed rice. One notion I must correct is this, that Nigerians have preference for foreign rice. It is not true. No, it's not true. Go around. In fact, as I speak to you, people still call me and say, Mr. Andy, we can't find rice. Foreign rice all over the place. Why? There's a reason for that. The reason is that the foreign rice that has been warehoused in Benin Republic are cheap and not healthy. So what happens? These smugglers, they now collude with agents, some traders, and drop it, bring it into the country, drop it for them without payment. You see a whole line of truck going into the interior to drop product. I said, no, you go ahead and sell. I'll come back and collect the money. Yeah, that's what's happening. So when they say preference for foreign rice, no, it's not true. I'm sure you eat Nigerian rice in your home. So that's what is happening. What we need to do at this stage to be able to save the investment of government and the private sector investment, to be able to make sure that our youths are still engaged, to be able to make sure that our farmers are able to farm and send their produce to the processor, it connects. It's a connection. Is to make sure that we tackle smuggling and put an end to it so that we can move forward.
Okay, thank you so much for your opening comment. We'll come back to you so that you can explain to us more while, the demand for rice is getting higher and higher. Let's now go to our Mina studio where Mohammed Ali Baba, a consultant to the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, is waiting. You've been listening to him, and my question is, why is the demand for rice getting higher and higher and higher? And the current production in the country is just not enough to, satisfy Nigerians, as we account for 20% of the, of consumption of rice in the African continent.
Thank you. I think primarily we all know that part of the cause of this increase in demand is attributable to increase in population. Nigeria's population, is said to be increasing at a very high rate. And then most importantly, there has been an improvement in the economic status of a lot of Nigerians, the average Nigerian. Before, rice used to be ceremonial food, during festivities and during naming or wedding ceremonies, But now, because a lot of people can afford it, there has been a change in the taste pattern so that it becomes a food for the table, daily consumption. Some eat it, twice or more or throughout the day. So that is primarily why there has been an increase in consumption. These two factors, that there has volume of population to consume, and then of course the purchasing power has improved. But I think our focus should mainly be, rather than lament, take advantage of that opportunity and, go into improved production and then create, by and large, that's an opportunity for us to get our young ones engaged. As the first contributor has highlighted, a lot of our youth and entrepreneurs are going in. So what we need to do, even this issue of smuggling, is to ramp up this production as much as possible, By the time the market is flooded, both with paddy and processed rice, I think the challenges of pricing might be impacted. For instance, we will all realize recently in Rifan staged a rice festival in Mina. Huge pyramids reminiscent of the Grand pyramids of Kano in the 50s and 60s up to 70s. Huge Egyptian-style pyramids were erected here. And it took the millers nearly 2 months to evacuate them. Plans are afoot to do same in Kebbi and possibly a mega one in Abuja. So the paddy is available, and then, of course, processors are processing. But I think by the time we continue to demand and supply factors will come into play. Once more production goes in, and processors, more processing mills are opened, eventually that will suppress the prices, and then we'll be able to compete with whatever is smuggled. But we need to reiterate that while it's good to raise these alarms, the smuggled rice is essentially, for now, it's minimal. A lot, just like like I said, the first contributor has admitted, most of us eat processed rice. And of course, increasingly, there is the understanding that this imported rice are mostly almost poisonous. So our own rice is more nutritious, fresh from the farm. We all know that because, we can't, it's not even enough to be consumed. So we can't even store them for long as the imported varieties are. So I think our emphasis now will be to find a way of addressing some of the issues militating against increased production. And a lot of them has to do with perhaps improving the synergy between stakeholders. For instance, Ministry of Water Resources and Agriculture need to have more improved synergy in the utilization of a lot of these, underutilized irrigation schemes. Now, those are opportunities for us to, particularly in the dry season variety, with the increasing challenge of climatic change. Flooding has, just like the background has indicated, impacted on production. Now, we are focusing with Rifan now to ensure that every dry season will do at least 2 croppings. So, but part of the major cost for dry season production is energy, fuel consumption. These irrigation schemes, once there is appropriate synergy, I think will be optimized so that, whatever gap there is could also be filled. And increasingly...
We're going to come back to you in the course of the conversation. We understand now that the Public Relations Officer of the Nigeria Customs Service, Deputy Comptroller Joseph Atta, is with us via Zoom. Joseph Atta, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
A very good morning, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, I hope you had the benefit of listening to the DG of the Rice Processors Association of Nigeria, Andy Ekwelem, who is with us here in the studios, and indeed various media accounts indicating that we are seeing an influx, once again, of imported rice in Nigeria. Whether this is contraband or legal imports, we have no way of knowing. So you tell us, Mr. Joseph Atta, are we back to the old days of smuggled rice? Are we back to the old days of foreign rice flooding our markets and displacing locally produced rice?
Well, from our own point of view, we want to caution that we are very careful of the kind of narrative we tune out there. When we begin to push narrative that embolden criminals or give criminals a sense of victory over security agencies, we may not be fair to our men and women who are risking their life, some of which have paid supreme prices. Of course, you've heard of custom officers being killed, men in the course of prosecuting this war against smugglers. And sometimes the loud voice coming from a particular sector leaves us wondering if it is only about patriotism. We recall that when the borders were temporarily, or should I say partially closed, that particular sector, we are singing our praises and saying we are doing a lot. And then other sections, we are saying, no, nothing has changed. Smuggling was still taking place. It is still business as usual. Virtually came together to vigorously police our borderlines. Some people were still saying, no, nothing has changed. That rice smuggling was still going there everywhere. In fact, for me, as a PRO, there have never been a moment that people said rice smuggling have been reduced by some quarters. I kept receiving those complaints, except for this particular sector at certain moments who were saying that, okay, they are smiling to the banks now, borders should perpetually remain closed and all that. And not quite 1 month or so, the vibes we are getting from that sector is as if the whole security agencies, never forget that we still have joint border patrol in place at both sides of the border. But the kind of vibes we are getting is as if the whole joint security forces, which by the way is not only customs, have lined up to open the borders and say, and start ringing bell and say, rice smugglers, where are you? Come and enter, as if that is what is happening. That is unfair. Having said that, I will not sit here and say rice smuggling is not taking place in some approved routes here and there. And that has been the continuous challenge. That has been what we are fighting. That has been the reason why we call on Nigerians to support us, especially border community dwellers, especially those who receive motorbikes and handsets to monitor our movement and call smugglers and tell them where we are heading to, where the smugglers should pass through, the bush, the creeks, how they will join the next village and hit the highway to the city, especially those who sabotage us on a daily basis. That is the reason why we call on some of these interested sectors to invest in mass mobilization, in telling Nigerians why rice smuggling should be stopped, why consumption of our local rice should be encouraged, should be the way out. That is why we call on this interested sector to invest in intelligence. When they see some of these things, they should help us pass the intelligence to us. I think we have come to a point where we believe that probably this sector have certain intelligence that we don't have. And there's nothing wrong in passing such intelligence over to us so that we can prosecute, so that we can ensure that those snippets that pass through the bushes are nipped. And I also wonder if some of these people are watching televisions. We have a program called Customs Duty on NTA every Monday by 8:30. You only need to watch this program and you see the thousands of bags of rice that are seized across the commands and zones of this country. So for somebody to use the word influx, we are beginning to look at it as being unfair and probably less appreciative of the sacrifices that are being paid daily by custom officers. Having said that, I will tell you what happened just last week. Just last week, the Comptroller General of Customs, Colonel Hamid Ibrahim Ali, retired, a man reputed for no nonsense. He does not tolerate anything that goes against the law. Nigerians know him. He has an impeccable integrity. He called all the commanders, all the controllers of the land borders, all the commanders of the Federal Operation Unit and the Strike Force to the headquarters. He gave them a marching order, some of which I may not say here for security reasons, because if you want to catch a thief, you don't tell the thief, I am coming to your house tomorrow. But very soon, we hope people will not begin to say, hey, customs, abuse, human rights abuse. Why would you follow people to their private this and that to raid and all that? Woe betide any person who will choose to trade on foreign rice, even if it is 1 bag or 2 bags. I will rest that. I won't go further because certain specific directives were given last week. And we just hope that we will not have an outcry of saying, oh, customs are becoming reckless, customs are, and where we are there, when this thing passed, why did they stop them at the border? And I have just told you of some sabotages that we are receiving. If smugglers can buy machines, that's motorbikes, and give to some people, and buy handsets and give to some people to monitor us, those who are really, really interested in this, probably I should call them to think of other ways they can support us, because smugglers are supporting saboteurs against us. These people should also wake up and support well-meaning Nigerians for us, not against us. So this hue and cry, without resolving to commit to things that can solve issues, may not be in our interest. And at worst, it just demoralizes people who are sacrificing, putting their lives on the line on a daily basis.
Okay, DCP, I'm still going to stay with you a little. You know, you're painting a picture that is just not palatable to Nigerians on the, you know, in our border, with the porosity of our borders. Are you saying that you're sort of overwhelmed, the task force is overwhelmed by the situation at the borders?
If you just listen to what I said, I am not talking about a service that is defeated. I am talking about a service that is confronting a challenge and is confronting it well, even though there are pockets of sabotages here and there. And let's face it, there's no country in the globe that can beat its chest to say no smuggling in their country. Otherwise, we wouldn't be hearing about big countries contemplating building walls along their borderline. Smuggling is a crime that is committed by human beings like me and you. Even as we speak, probably somebody in his bedroom or in a beer parlor is strategizing on how to smuggle from somewhere. It is, yes, a statutory function of the Nigerian Customs Service. But just as we say about security, is the business of all.
All right. Deputy Comptroller of Customs, Joseph Atta, say that your Zoom connection is frozen in the meantime. We're just chuckling here when you say that smuggling is undertaken by human beings like yourself and my colleague Juma. So we'll take that as a joke in the meantime and return to you in the course of the conversation. I'm tempted to pause Dr. Ken Okoa, who's been soaking all of this up, so we can get, in the meantime, a quick response from the DG of the Rice Processors Association, Andy Ekwelem, very quickly before we bring in the traders, so that we know what we are dealing with. A customs PRO says, look, let's be careful with the narrative that we are putting out there. And there is a certain sense in which he also says that perhaps rice processors and others in the value chain who are involved in domestic production are crying wolf.
Well, for the last part, I'm happy what he said about the directives given now to immediately go in. Nigerians will not cry. We don't want the economy to crumble on top of us, right? The DCG had made a point, and that point is very clear, that there's smuggling. He acknowledges that there's smuggling. You know, when you hear him say smuggling is done by this and by that, by himself, you know that there's smuggling. When you hear him say smugglers are promoting the activities of people by buying bicycles for them to follow them, which means they acknowledge that there's smuggling. When you say that at a point in time, we that assumed crying wolf came out publicly and said the customs are doing very well. I'm not sure. On this side, we are saying customs are doing very well. On this other side, we say we are crying wolf. At the time they did the job they were supposed to do, we applauded them. But what we are saying now is that at the moment the borders were reopened, there is an influx, and that is the situation now. He acknowledges that if you go to the marketplace, there is foreign rice. You know, he he acknowledged all that I have said, but now...
No. He didn't acknowledge all that you have said. That's not correct.
Oh, okay, sir, but
yes.
what...
Some of the things.
Some of the things I've said, okay, right. But the fact remains that he acknowledged that, by and large, there is foreign rice in the marketplace. One of the things that strike me that the DCG has said is about big countries talking about building walls, you know, and it calls to mind America and the Mexicans. Fine. Rice is a focal crop for Nigerian government. Rice is number one on the list of prohibited products in the CBN embargo on farm M's.
Forex.
Rice is the major staple for Nigerians. Rice employs, I said it the other day, the entire value chain, the large-scale processors, the medium rice mills, the cottage, employs, conservatively, between 13 to 15 million Nigerians, as I speak. It is an industry that has, say, conservatively again, 3.4, 3.5 trillion naira, you know, industry. We can't joke with rice. We cannot allow rice to come in and export job to India, export job to Thailand, when our brothers who have funds elsewhere are bringing it home to invest in rice. It does not mix, it doesn't add up. So what we are saying is this, everybody must join hands to make sure that smuggling is stopped. Of course, Nigerians, like I told you, understand the fact that Nigerian rice is better, is fresh rice, is healthier, is sweeter. Everybody acknowledges that. Let me tell you something. Sorry, sir. I had an interview with some guy from Router, and there was going to be a story that she wanted me to comment on. The Indian government is looking at using rice for feed meal now, instead of maize, because according to them, the cost of maize in India is going up, and the alternative to them is rice. And I asked her a question, I said, can you relate the two? What it means is that they are going to evacuate rice that has been in their silo over the years, preserved with pesticides, preserved with chemicals, and this is the rice some of these merchants will go and offtake in India, send it to Cotonou, send it to elsewhere, and then they come into Nigeria. And tomorrow now we're crying. When we start to feel cancer, when we start to feel all manner of sickness, we don't know where it's going to. It becomes a challenge on the health sector. So these are things we need to look at.
Okay, Mr. Andy Ekwele, thank you very much. Dr. Ken Ukoha, National President of the National Association of Nigerian Traders, you're a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. You've had the benefit of listening to the comments, and I'm sure you have your own perspective. It probably is a provocative question to pose, but there is the impression in some quarters that some of your members are complicit in the influx of foreign rice, thereby seeking to dampen the rice revolution in Nigeria.
Kingsley, thank you very much. And just like Controller, my good friend, mentioned that smugglers can be himself and my good sister. I don't think, jokingly anyway, but I don't think that our members are smugglers. We don't have any smuggler that is a member of NANS, and I want to underline that. The association has nothing to do with those who go out of their way in an unpatriotic manner to destroy the economy. And we have our disciplinary measures on this. On this note, I want to take off by perhaps assuming that lamentation strand that has been taken by my good brother, DC Atta. Last week I had an exchange on chat with him. We were supposed to have a discussion, and that discussion was based on this subject matter. I never knew that this was coming up. And I want to share with his frustrations there is an organized plan by some economic saboteurs to destroy the economy of this country, and by extension to destroy the nation that we have in our hands. And I think we must all be patriotic enough to stand for the truth. I understand what the customs are going through right now as we speak. And since we are on a national television, I'm going to make one revelation here for the benefit of Nigerians before I kick off. And that revelation is namely, as we speak, there is about 19 trucks in Benin Republic. And this is an intelligence. But I felt I should have shared it with the customs directly. But because of the benefit of Nigerians who may not be aware, I have chosen to say this here. About 19 trucks of rice that have been abandoned in Benin Republic since the closure of the border. There have been discussions within them internally there on how to move this rice down Nigeria. But there is a problem. The problem is not the rice itself, but the poisonous nature of this rice as we speak. These 19 trucks now have been loaded, 50 kg bags. And if you look at this, during the closure of the border, what they did was to apply chemicals on them so as to safeguard them, not knowing how long the protracted closure would last. And in the process of the application of these chemicals, it was discovered that there was high content of this chemical on the rice. Now, there's an argument, a debate within them. Should we export this or should we bear this and destroy it? And there is a sense that we're getting that they are now exporting, moving this to Nigeria. And this is very, very dangerous to Nigerians. You know why it's dangerous? Because of the health of the people. And I speak now that NAFDAC and other agencies should be aware. Customs, everybody heard what Atta was saying. They are really on red alert. I know that. But I think Nigerians themselves should not be deceived. Nigerians themselves should not be looking at fire and pushing their fingers. Nigerians should be aware that there is poison on the way coming. A truckload of rice, a 40-feet container, has about 1,160 bags of 50 kg. Depending if it's well packed, 1,160. Now, if you multiply by 19, you have over 20,000 bags of poisonous rice coming in. It could be my mother. It could be it could be me. It could be anybody. And therefore, we need to be very conscious of this. Now, having stated this, let's get back to this subject matter very clinically. And I think we need to also look at statistics. Nigeria requires about 7 million metric tons of rice annually. As at the end of 2020, we had come to about 7.8 million metric tons production of paddy. What does that tell you? It tells you that we have already overreached the gap. And therefore, smugglers were not happy that their market was already being frustrated. And here we are, in Africa. Africa produces about 14.8 million metric tons of rice annually, out of which Nigeria has about 7.8 that I talked about, which is 55%. Egypt produces 30%. Then the other countries, about 53 other countries, produces 15%. You know where I'm heading to? It tells you that Nigeria can feed the entire shield of the continent as we progress. So I don't understand what we are doing with imported rice, with foreign rice.
Is it a mentality?
It is a very stupid mentality. I'm sorry, permit me. I mean, my word. I had traveled, I think that was in 2011, thereabout, or so. 2000 and, yes, about that 2010, 2011, with Dr. Additional, who was the Minister of Agriculture in this country, who is presently the President of the African Development Bank. And we traveled to Thailand and 2 other Asian countries. And when we got there, you know, the ministers over there and the top government officials were showing us around, taking us from one warehouse to another. And, you know, sadly for them, what will I say, fortunately for us, anyway. And they were showing us dates on each of the warehouses when this rice was stored. And, you know, for every one of them, there was a date, particular date and time of storage. And then I called the minister, I said, this one was stored here 2005. This one, 2009. This one. Then there are others that were I saw one, 1999. Oh. I said, so the Honorable Minister now asked the minister, I said, this one was stored in 2000. You guys are doing very good job, and this rice is still what it is. He said, yes. We make sure that they are well protected, well preserved. Thank you. When we got back to the hotel, the minister called me and said, Barrister, see that those dates you are showing me. So which means these people have been giving us rice that have stayed for over 10 good years in their silos, preserved with chemicals. And that's what they've been giving to us. I said, here we are. Look at our predicament. But the conclusion of this matter is that Nigeria has been consuming poison without knowing. And no wonder we have been frustrated by all these ailments and all of this that come and people are dumping and dying and, you know, we cannot find out what we are doing. Why are we not going to continue supporting what we produce? Why must we continue to demand what? It surprises me. But let me conclude on this particular phase now with one point that I am not comfortable with. A few months or weeks back, before the opening of the border, I was here on Good Morning Nigeria with you, Kingsley. And we were talking about, and the Honorable Minister of Finance was joined us via Zoom. Thank you very much. You were there. And I was discussing the matter of the importance of having a report, a documented report of the processes, causative factors, implications, actions taken, gaps, and all the security implications and all whatnot that have taken place since 20th of August 2019, when the border was closed, until when it was opened. Eventually, the Honorable Minister submitted that a report was available and that they were going to put that on the public domain. Up to this moment, Nigerians have not gotten in touch with that. You know why I'm mentioning this? If we had that report by now, we would have dusted it to see, look, these are some points that are missing. This is why the rice is still coming in. This is why the poultry sector is now singing another song. This is why the rice sector that was perhaps singing, praises to government is now, changing the tune. And we will now articulate and say, oh, yes, perhaps this is what ought to be done to ensure that we remedy the situation. But we don't have it. We can't have access to it. And we don't run a government like this. There must be some sense of openness, transparency. There should also be a collaboration between the actors, government on one side and the private sector. And if I had, look, in other climes, agencies of government will interact on regular basis with the actors. I could send some of these information, intelligence. It is not only security agencies that get intelligence. We also do. I'm a member of the ECOWAS Heads of State Task Force, 7-man task force on trade. While this issue of the border closure was on, 3 of us in the task force were sent, the former head of state of Niger Republic, myself, and the permanent secretary of the task force were sent to all the other countries, and we had to mobilize them. Eventually came up with a tripartite meeting of Nigeria, Niger Republic, and Benin Republic. And we sat down for several, months, tinkering on what to be done. We met in Burkina Faso, and eventually we agreed and itemized certain issues to be done, among which is that there is need for the warehouses that are dotted along the buffer zones to be destroyed. In fact, I brought that particular, I made that demand. Because we went to, I have traveled all the borders of this West Africa. I know where and where, smugglers use. This is the cause. Here is the cause. Let's destroy them. And it was admitted. The question is, to what extent has that happened? The second, before I flag down, is the tripartite agreement. And of course, Mr. Talon, the president of Benin Republic, came here, flew in, and met with Mr. President the other day, and everybody knew. And in Benin Republic, when we are talking about smuggling, it is not small boys. These are top echelon. In fact, the members of cabinet, I'm sorry to say this, they all got to where they are getting through. I don't know whether it's smuggling or buying and selling. I don't know. But here we are. So, and they keep protecting and ECOWAS knows this. So the last point is, what is the role of ECOWAS? If I were Nigeria, I would now come back and knock at the doors of ECOWAS and say, look, hey, guy, this thing that was crying before, I started weeping behind. What is your role now? Because you brought us on the table to discuss. Now that we have opened the border, courtesy of the AFCFTA implementation, now that we have respected you, courtesy of your demands, why are we going back to soak on this water? Thank you for now.
Right. Dr. Ken Okoha, thank you very much there for the insight that you have provided. Let's return to our network studios, Mohammed Ali Baba. Mohammed Ali Baba, once again, you've heard what the other guests have said. I just wanted you to respond to some of the points articulated by the Deputy Comptroller of Customs, who is also the PRO, Joseph Atta, that there are expectations of actors in the rice value chain, say the millers or processors and providers of inputs, to say, for instance, one of the ways that we could deal much more effectively with smuggling, it's assist them with information. If the smugglers are equipping their mules with gadgets and vehicles, what is it that those who are local producers are also doing? What, therefore, the question would be, what is the level of interface between those in the rice value chain in Nigeria and the security agencies, more particularly the Nigeria Customs Service?
Yeah, I agree. Well, one of the points I was making while before the DCG came in was the need for synergy, actually, because it's a multi-stakeholder industry, this rice. It has a long value chain. And of course, with the issue of smuggling, of course, it has its own security undertones. So part of what we need to reiterate is that all stakeholders need to, and Dr. Okwa also emphasized that, need to regularly interact, share information, share intelligence, and of course, act together. That cannot be overemphasized. So I think it's a welcome proposition, though there has been some interactions, but I think it needs to be improved upon. All the stakeholders need to have a platform where we regularly interact and share ideas, and of course take up decisions and jointly pursue their implementation. I agree completely with him, just like the security services used to. Security is everybody's responsibility, and then protection of our economic interests is also very imperative. So I agree completely with him, and then of course, like I said, under that platform, we could have shared responsibilities too. The issue of intelligence is key. And most importantly, the NAN's president highlighted the recent visit of the president of Benin Republic. I think part of what has been agreed, because they also held discussion with RIFA, was how those countries, rather than to become conduits, given the kind of border we share, some of them are actually rice-producing areas, they could also be encouraged. We could share knowledge, and technology on how they themselves can also embark on production and processing of rice, so that what comes in, in terms of regulation, will meet the AFCTA requirements as well as ECOWAS requirement, because on the issue of countries of origin. I think some of the things that we need to discuss, this regular engagement with ECOWAS and other border communities is key. But apart from engagement in trying to dissuade them from being the launchpad for smuggling, it's also to see how we can encourage them to also look inwards and see how they can embark on local production of some of these food products, so that they will legitimately can meet the ECOWAS and AFCTA requirements, and then come into the country as legitimate products. And then, of course, by that way, the competition will not be as stiff as, and of course, we'll be aware that they will also not be, be conduits for exportation of poison into our countries. So regular, periodic, regular engagements is key, and of course, like I said, joint plans and collective implementation will help to solve the problem. But now that also the DCG has raised it, I think all the stakeholders need to also go back and see how they can contribute to these efforts, because we are all in it together. I think that's the kind of response I want to make. Thank you.
Controller General.
Okay, Mohammed Ali Baba, you've raised some pertinent questions which I believe our guest in the studio will be able to answer, but we'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation on resurgence of foreign rice in Nigeria will continue.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the game changer, His Excellency Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State. Broadcasting in a digital economy, Maxwell Logo gives an insight. This edition also features Nancy Naji of AIT, a name synonymous with business. Meet the NCDC boss, Dr. Chikwe Ihekweazu. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, also x-rays the relevance of social media in the modern society. Meet some TV professionals who have impacted their spaces and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Okay, it's still Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We still have all our guests with us. I just want to bring in again Andy Ekwela, Director General, Rice Processors Association of Nigeria. Earlier, the Deputy Comptroller of Customs, who is also the Public Relations Officer, gave a hint. And we know that you also spoke about that some time ago. And it's always been an argument, because I recall many years ago, there was an attempt to raid shops that were trading in contraband. In other words, goods that were prohibited from being in the country. And what the Deputy Comptroller said was one of the arguments that was made at the time. Say, where were you when these items were being smuggled? Now they are in town. You want to come and be raiding our shops. It was more like saying that illegal firearms, once they get smuggled into the country, now become legitimate in the hands of those of the criminal elements who have them. But what do you think can also be done to much more effectively? I understand that in Ebonyi State, Ebonyi is one of the major rice producers in the country, that people's action is often the result when they see you selling imported rice.
In fact, at a point, the governor was very clear about sales of imported rice in Ebonyi State. Governor Mai, it was clear. He said, I don't want it in my state. And everybody was beaten to line. Truth of the matter is this. Smugglers will always work. It's their means of livelihood. And if you, just like the customs officer said, you give it to them. They lose men and women of the force. Honestly speaking, we know. We know. We interact with customs. We engage customs. We sometimes give them information on what we hear, because they have our intel. We have our people deployed, to the border areas to see what is happening. And most of the time, we also avail them this information to act on and work with. But the thing is this. When they manage to come in, they have collaborators. When Doc was saying things about ECOWAS, about AFCA, all that, it's okay. We can all do that at a bilateral level between states. But what do we do to immediately stop it? There are people who off-take from these smugglers. And those people sell in the marketplace. They sell in the shops. If you go to almost all the shops in Abuja now, for instance, take a ride today. Go to Sahat. Go to H-Medis. Go to ShopRite. Go to all over the shops in Abuja. You see foreign rice all over the place. How did they come in? First of all, it is number one, I repeat, on the prohibition list. So how did they manage to come in? The CBN has not approved a Form M for rice. How did it come in? So I said, the best way to go about it, first of all, can we begin to make a legislation, if there is none, to criminalize sales of foreign rice? If I come to your shop and I see foreign rice, first of all, we have to go beyond customs, sees 2 trucks of rice, 3 trucks of rice, come on TV, burn it, and everybody goes home happy. The man loses maybe 2-3 million naira. He has a war chest of about 1 billion. He goes back again, and then he succeeds. He makes what he has lost. No. We need to move beyond burning or seizing of this thing. When you are caught, you don't only burn the rice or destroy the rice, you are held accountable. The law will come on you, and you will be tried in the law court and jailed. If that woman who is selling 5 bags of rice in the shop knows that, if NAFDAC, trade malpractice, custom, police, they come here and see this thing, I will go to jail. When you bring it to her, you say, no, please, I don't want. The sub-distributor, when you give him, you say, no, please, I don't want. Now the smuggler will be discouraged from selling. It's a simple thing.
Do we rule out corruption in the scheme of things here?
Of course, you don't rule out corruption, but to check the corruption is that when the man who is going to buy from you to sell in the market says, I am not bad. For instance, if you go to a law court and somebody has stolen a vehicle, and you bring the guy before the judge, they bring the man who has bought the vehicle, the man who stole the vehicle, and the accomplice. The man that get the highest sentence is the man that bought the vehicle, because you are the encourager. You are encouraging the people to go and sell to you. So why don't we focus on those people who are selling in the market? We come to you, if we come to your shop today and we see it, first of all, it's closed down. EFCC used to do it now. If you have a problem, economic, a financial problem, EFCC comes and they seal up your building. Everybody will know that this man is a thief. You go and clear your name. But first, it has been recorded around your neighborhood. Kai, this man is a thief. EFCC has come to him. And everybody begin to be aware of you. Now, what we do is get the people, arrest them, shut down the shop. You know, by the time you drag them to court, back and forth, if you tell anybody to buy smuggled rice, again, you tell you, no, please, I don't want government wahala. And that you have stopped. Leave the people in Benin Republic, leave the people in Cotonou, leave the people once nobody is selling the smuggled rice in Nigeria, those guys won't be encouraged to bring it in to sell.
Okay, Mr. Andy, thank you so much. Dr. Ken, let's come back to you. You talked about all these things happening around the border of West Africa and all, but let's take a step back. You said there are penalties for traders who indulge in this kind of business. You know, we've heard of our traders here in Nigeria buying local rice and, you know, bagging it in foreign rice bag, and we see foreign rice coming and bagging it as local rice. So what kind of penalties do you have for your traders who sort of do that kind of thing?
All right, thank you very much. We have disciplinary measures. We have sanction mechanisms in our internal laws. But let me say this, no matter the kind of sanctions that we have in our own internal mechanism, they remain internal. They cannot superintend over the nation's laws. Now, my colleague talked about penalizing those who sell imported rice. And I quickly felt I should come in here. It would be wrong for you to go to court with anybody because he is selling imported rice. Number one, all of us are members of the WTO. Nigeria signed on to the WTO. And the World Trade Organization has over 170 members or so. And there are two basic principles of law in the WTO, in trade law. One is national treatment. The other is most favored nation principle, MFN. And these two, clocked together, tells you that you must treat other persons, other countries' goods as you treat your own. Now, in that regard, you cannot take somebody who is dealing on rice, on imported rice, to court. No, absolutely not. You cannot. But I think there are certain things, certain measures we can take here. And what are they? We can be more strategic, very strategic about these things. The same WTO also provided leeways. And this is exactly what the developed countries and economies are using. For instance, that, look, NAFDAC comes up now and says, look, we have sent this particular rice to the laboratory and we have discovered 1, 2, 3 poisonous substances and all of that. That's the end of that. You've made a case. You've made a case. So
and that anyone found in possession or selling those kinds of rice
can be prosecuted.
What is the role of the standard
for the
organization
endangerment of public health?
Yes, standard organization, yes, they apply, but this is not, we're not talking about standard here. We're talking about food. That's why we bring in NAFDAC here. National Agency for Food, Drug, and Administration and Control. So they are responsible. And they also have the laboratory to do this. They have the powers to do this. And they will now send this to this.
Has it been done before?
I don't think that they have done this. Whether they are planning to do this, I believe they have to. They just have to get up. There's a second item which Kingsley raised earlier, which has to do with the power to, conscript. The power to confiscate items.
Prosecute.
And also prosecute. Okay. That is in our Custom and Excise Management Act, is a provision there. Of course, some of us cried and, wept at that time and said, look, if you allow these things to cross the border and then you are looking at the poor man who has opened the shop and, selling these things, does it not arise to injustice? It's not fair. Why don't you do your work over there? So that you don't... But then we also discover that there is some kind of connivance with some unscrupulous elements in the customs. Very few. Very few. There are wonderful custom officers who dedicate their lives to this struggle. And we know them. We know them. And we pass information to them. And of course, if you look at, you listen to my friend Atta, the way he speaks, and you see the zeal, you see the passion, you see commitment. If you listen to the Controller General, you see commitment. You see his face shows that, look, no nonsense already, even without him talking. But again, we have people who just want their pockets. The other point is that those who are responsible for all of these crimes we're talking about are big shots. It's not these people in the selling on the streets.
But are they above the law?
They are not above the law. That's why I'm getting to. Let the long arm of the law get hold on these people. That's the point. And I think the security agencies know them. Some of these people also fund elections. Hey.
Okay, hey. Dr. Kenukoha, hey. Let's pause you in the meantime and get the view from our viewers who have sent in their tweets. Quite a number of them. We'll see the ones that we can accommodate and then return to Joseph Atta, this Deputy Controller of Customs, to make his closing thoughts on this. Mike Anyakwo, he says, we don't cultivate enough for local consumption, and there is also high cost of homegrown rice. Well, we say we don't cultivate enough. The numbers do not appear to justify that. There is the inability of Nigeria Customs to be on top of their responsibilities in all cases, and that's also a factor. Stopping smuggling may therefore be very hard. However, it can be reduced with more efforts. And
Innocent Yao James, the local rice farmers, rice mills, and all stakeholders need to strategize in order to be competitive in the market space, even though it is said that Nigerian rice is nutritious than the chemicalized ones. People are hungry. Market price plays a key role in the resurgence of foreign rice.
Now, Steve Bond, 007, says foreign rice never left in the first place. They were always readily available. Customs needs more men and better technology.
And Barnimas Dynamic, rice farmers should stop deceiving government and the citizens. They can't produce enough to feed this country. The consumption deficit is about 3 million metric tons. If they are able to produce enough, then why should rice be sold at 20,000 naira? Let the truth be told.
So why should rice be sold above 20,000 naira? Abu's solution is to close the border.
And Oladimeji Maro, 4 tweets. Flooding carried most of homegrown rice. Why can't people suggest how to prevent such occurrences and also to recover the losses? It is a matter of urgency to look for substitute, which is foreign rice.
Well, Morufo Oladimeji, on Good Morning Nigeria last year when we had the flooding in a number of states, including Kebbi, the governor of Kebbi State was one of our guests here, and he talked about the measures that were going to be taken. We're in the dry season now, and I believe that dry season cultivation is ongoing.
It's ongoing,
so, all right, Usman Bandukanto, the resurgence of foreign rice in Nigerian markets is inevitable, considering the fact that Nigerian rice prices had skyrocketed for over 2 years now, and this is the only way to checkmate it. The only way to checkmate it is to have foreign rice?
I wonder. Titus Mondenok, farmers caught in webs of general insecurity are afraid to go to farms in predominantly rice-producing regions. It's one of the causes. Therefore, it becomes very pertinent that the issue of security be tackled head-on to build confidence for farmers to return back to the fields.
Dele Jack Solomon, why wouldn't we be experiencing the resurgence of foreign rice when small and medium-scale rice millers who account for more than 80% of the local market are struggling to meet increased demand without proper equipment, coupled with bad roads and storage facilities. Could this be true?
Leo Fadaka, inability of local producers to meet the huge demand of rice consumption is part of the resurgence of importation after the border closure, coupled with impact of COVID-19 and insecurity. Government intervention and reduced complicit official smuggling may help.
First, as Akimbo, the federal government can effectively tackle smuggling and importation of rice into the country by collaborating with our neighbors to address the problem. Also, the government can remove the economic advantage enjoyed by smugglers of rice by criminalizing sale of foreign rice in Nigeria.
Law Alpha-C, the resurgence of foreign rice is as a result of porous land borders, Nigerians' preference for foreign-made products, inferiority complex mentality, and enemies of the Nigerian state for personal gains.
Akeju Olagbaju, we need to sustain the campaign to discourage patronage of foreign rice. Myself, that's Akeju now, and Chief Okpala Zebrudaya Okori sat down in 2014, worked on a script. This was not promoted again as advert because of lack of funding. Local millers who are the beneficiaries should promote the campaign on media.
Exactly. And Teo, more funding to small growers and zero duty for rice processing machinery will help. Collaboration of state governments, especially Ogun and Oyo State with custom, will stop the free reign of smugglers and boost our IGR. We have good rice in Nigeria.
Suleiman Babagana says porosity of borders is one of the factors that leads to the resurgence, which can be mitigated by provision of adequate and advanced processing facilities to farmers in order to compete with their foreign counterparts.
Yahya Wada, it's unfortunate that the local rice producers, instead of ensuring that the local rice is affordable, capitalize on it by exploiting Nigerians. Federal government through Anko Borrowers program gave them funds, but yet dealing with us greedily. God bless Nigeria.
Adamu Usman Kaina says, please, did I hear Dr. Ukoha say there are no smugglers within the fold of their membership? I beg you.
And Ajia Mahmoud Olayinka, during holidays in my university days, I would buy rice at semi-axis and sold it around Alaba market. Sincerely, I never knew I was killing local businesses. I'm appealing to Nigerian customs to adopt stick and carrot approach by sensitizing the smugglers on the menace of smuggling.
That's true confession. People just engage in illegal activities without knowing. They call it business. They say it's business. They must survive. But the aggregate consequences what we are discussing. Sheyi Ogbeni tweet says federal government can ensure smuggling and importation are diminished by effective legislation against smugglers, who should also be severely punished. Nigerians should be willing and confident to consume homegrown rice.
Yes.
All right, so those are the tweets that we can accommodate. In the meantime, let's return to Joseph Attah, Deputy Comptroller of Customs, to get his closing thoughts on this issue. A number of perspectives have come up, but a bit worrisome what Dr. Oko had disclosed on the program this morning, that you have tens of trailer loads of rice probably just making their way into the country. And that rice, of course, is deemed to have decomposed on account of the application of preservatives. Is this worrisome to you?
Well, yeah, those are the kind of intelligence we need, and some of which we are aware and are also putting our strategies in place to deal with this. Unfortunately, we do not choose. Our costs are bestowed, and it would appear them take population of our potential gauge on we.
Sorry, it looks like that's the audio connection of Joseph Attah's Zoom is poor. That's the signal that we're getting. But very quickly, before we call it today on this conversation, Andy Equilem, there are complaints that some of the local rice still has stones in them.
Yes.
How do you deal with that very quickly?
Yeah, one thing we must know is that it's a large industry. We have the large-scale integrated mills where we are, and we process to the quality, the best you can think of anywhere in the world. And we have the cottage industries. He mentioned something, if I remember. There are people also who are unscrupulous traders who will go buy bags, buy from these cottage industries that do not have the real equipment to destone, to clean, to polish, and then they put it and sell into the market. So you don't rule that out that once or twice it will happen. But elsewhere it also happened.
No, don't say it once or twice. That's a major challenge.
Yeah, and that is...
let me say this.
Chewing on the stone is something else.
I wanted to address
that. This destoning is a major factor. People will just say, look, I don't want to have the challenge of having to wash and then see. By the time you put the rice in the pot, you are hearing the sound of the stones at the base of the pot.
That's what I'm saying. That right now there is we are working with Standard Organization. He mentioned standard. We've talked to having to set a standard for everybody in the industry, from the smallest to the biggest. Already we have a standard, a code of conduct, that the level we cannot go below. And that's why when you buy rice, that is what it is. But I want to say something very quickly, please, sir. Doctor said something about World Trade Organization, about how you treat a product of another country as your own, and all that. But you remember, if you smuggle product into the country, it's a crime, by the way. So that you've gone to arrest the person who has done that, I mean, you are not treating because we don't even know the origin of the product in the first place. So if you bring the rice the normal way through our seaport and pay the right duties, nobody talks to you. You're doing your business legit. But when you smuggle it into the country, first you have committed economic sabotage against that country. So you deserve a punishment.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Thank you so much, Mr. Andy Equilem, Director General, Rice Processors Association of Nigeria. We wish you have more time to trash out the price of rice and all the polishing and all that. Thank you so much for your input on Good Morning Nigeria. The President, National Association of Nigerian Traders, Dr. Ken Okoha, as always, it's a pleasure having you on Good Morning Nigeria. And Deputy Comptroller of Customs and Public Relations Officer, Nigeria Customs Service, Joseph Atta, thank you for your input. Mohammed Ali Baba, a consultant to the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, former employee of the Central Bank and an expert in development finance. Thank you, as usual, for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thank you. Sports Update is next.
Sunshine Stars put up an impressive performance as they beat Rangers 3-1 in their Nigerian Professional Football League Match Day 7 encounter at the Akure Township Stadium on Sunday. Meanwhile, in Aba, Enyimba scored a slim 1-0 win against Katsina United, with Tosi Omoyele netting the decisive goal on the stroke of the halftime. Rivers United also beat Adamawa United 1-0 at the Port Harcourt Stadium. Meanwhile, Anekan Ekpe backed the Braves as Dakada returned to winning ways following a 2-0 win against Warri Wolves in Uyo. MFM were held to a 0-0 draw by Kwara United at the Agege Stadium, while Lobby Stars and Abia Warriors also battled to a goalless draw in Makadi. FC Ifeanyi pipped Wiki Torres 1-0 in Nnewi, courtesy of Ogochukwu, FAGF's 17th minute strike. Meanwhile, Super Falcons striker Aziza Toshola scored 2 goals as Barcelona ladies hammered Real Madrid 4-1 in